My parents always favored my sister. But when she discovered I had $10 million, she had a complete breakdown at Thanksgiving dinner. When people ask about my childhood, I usually change the subject. It wasn't horrific. I had food and a roof over my head, but it was far from perfect. My name is Lisa, and I'm 38 years old. I'm sharing my story not for pity, but because someone might relate. At 8, my life changed dramatically. My sister Emily was born prematurely. I remember my dad speeding to the hospital in the dead of night while my Aunt Susan stayed with me. Everyone was worried about the baby, and I was too. I didn't fully understand premature births, but I knew something was wrong. Emily survived, though she was frail. Our house turned into a makeshift clinic, with my mom constantly sterilizing everything. The sharp smell of antiseptic hung in the air. If I even sneezed, my mom's concern was never for me but for Emily. "Lisa, was that a sneeze?" she'd ask, panicked. "We can't risk it. Pack a bag. You're going to Grandma's for a few days." I often ended up at Grandma's or Aunt Susan's, as if I carried a plague. At first, these trips felt like little adventures, but soon, I realized I was being sidelined. Craving my parents' approval, I threw myself into school. I earned straight A's, joined the chess club, and even won a math competition. But Emily's health always eclipsed my accomplishments. "Look, Mom, I won the math contest," I'd say, holding my medal proudly. "That's great, honey. Did you sanitize your hands?" "Emily's feeling weak today," she'd reply, brushing me off. By the time Emily was 7, she'd outgrown her health issues and was finally strong. But my parents couldn't break their protective habits. Emily, sensing her power, began manipulating. Their constant attention, acting fragile whenever she wanted something. High school was supposed to be my time to shine. I worked hard, keeping top grades and joining clubs. Yet Emily's wants always came first. One evening, my math teacher told my parents I had a strong chance at a STEM scholarship. "Lisa is one of our top students," he said. Then my mom's phone buzzed. Emily was home with the babysitter, upset. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Mom asked, worried. Emily wailed through the phone. "I lost my favorite pencil for my project, and the one Lisa gave me is terrible." Just like that, the moment vanished. My parents rushed home, abandoning the talk about my future, all to find Emily's pencil. After that, they stopped coming to my school events entirely. "It's simpler this way," they said. "Emily gets jealous when she feels excluded. When I won the regional chess tournament, they didn't even display my award. Emily doesn't like seeing other people's trophies," my mom explained, stashing it in a box. "Getting into college should have been a big deal. I earned a full scholarship to a state university, covering tuition and housing. I was ecstatic until I walked through the front door. At dinner, Emily barely glanced up before smirking and saying, 'Finally, you're leaving. I'm turning your room into my streaming studio. I want 3 screens and a gaming setup.' From then on, I counted the days until college. Those years passed quickly. I stayed on campus as much as possible, treating home like a brief stop for occasional family dinners where Emily dominated the conversation with her high school drama. At 23, with my degree in hand, I landed a supervisory role at Carter & Associates. The pay wasn't enough for lavish dinners or fancy apartments, but I had my own place, and that was enough. One day, while browsing online, an ad caught my eye. "Learn to grow your wealth." I usually ignored these, but this time I stopped. The course cost money, but I could swing it if I ate budget ramen for a bit. That choice changed everything. The instructor, David, made investing feel accessible. I started small, putting a few hundred into renewable energy stocks, then scaled up. I studied the market, learned risk strategies, and got the hang of it. My first big win came when I invested in a little-known robotics startup. A $370 investment soared to $30,500 in 3 months. Then a green energy company quadrupled my money. Soon, I was earning more from investments than my job. The moment I realized I could quit corporate life is crystal clear. Sitting at my desk, faking interest in reports, I checked my investment app. A stock had hit my target. Crunching the numbers, I saw my investment income had tripled my salary. Right there, I wrote my resignation. Still, I kept attending weekly family dinners. Maybe out of habit, maybe hoping things would change. I'd sit there, eating my mom's bland pork chops, listening to them talk about Emily while my investments quietly grew in the background. "Lisa, still at Carter's, right?" Mom would ask, barely listening to my answer. "Yep, same gig," I'd say, knowing they'd tune out before I finished. It was simpler that way. No need to explain I'd quit 2 years ago, and now made more in a day than I used to in a month. Emily was the star of every dinner. She'd been accepted to Whitmore College, a costly private school. "It's a big expense," Mom would sigh, her voice full of pride. but Emily deserves the best. We took out loans, but it's worth it for our girl's future. Emily, stirring her soup, would casually say, "My dorm mate has a Prada purse. Everyone there is so rich." The hint was clear. Our family didn't stack up. One Saturday, I found Mom in tears over a pile of bills. Dad hunched over forms at the table. "Property taxes went up again," he grumbled. "And with Emily's tuition?" Seeing their struggle, I thought of all the times they'd prioritized Emily over me. But they were still my parents. That night, I set up a $7,000 monthly transfer to their account. When I told them, Mom hugged me for the first time in years. "Oh, Lisa, this means so much." I clung to a faint hope that things might shift, that they'd finally see me differently. But that hope crumbled when I overheard them in the kitchen after dinner. "We should give some of Lisa's money to Emily," Mom said. "At least $4,500. The poor thing feels out of place with all those wealthy students." Dad nodded instantly. "Good call. She needs to keep up appearances. Maybe she can get that designer purse she's been wanting." I wanted to barge in and tell them everything. That I'd left my job years ago, that my investments had made me richer than they could dream, that I could buy the whole boutique they wanted Emily to shop at, but I didn't. I just stood there, shaking my head as they planned to channel my money into Emily's image. By 29, I was ready for a change. My investments had surpassed my wildest dreams, and I was tired of renting. After months of searching, I found the perfect condo, secure, with a breathtaking city view. It wasn't ostentatious, just solid and roomy enough to feel like home. Best of all, I could buy it outright. No mortgage, no debt, no strings. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room, hearing my steps echo off the walls. This was mine. No one else had a claim. No loans. No need for anyone's approval but my own. When Mom called, as usual, to talk about Emily under the guise of checking on me, I mentioned I was moving. "Found a cheaper rental?" she asked, distracted, papers shuffling in the background. "Just a new place," I said vaguely. "Better spot." "Don't overspend on rent, honey. Your industry's so shaky," she warned. I almost laughed. If she only knew my industry was now managing millions in investments, not shuffling papers at Carter's as she assumed. At the next family gathering, Aunt Susan asked about my new place. Before I could answer, Mom cut in. "Lisa's renting a new condo," she said dismissively. "But wait till you hear about Emily's big news. She's graduating top of her class from Whitmore College." As usual, the conversation turned into an Emily showcase. Relatives fawned over her bright future, occasionally glancing at me with mild pity. "Emily's going places," Dad said proudly. "No surprise, she's always been our gem. Companies are lining up to hire her, unlike some who settle for ordinary," my cousin whispered to his wife, loud enough for me to hear. I sipped my wine slowly, thinking of the stock trade I'd made that morning, earning more in a day than he did in a year. But I stayed quiet. Let them think what they wanted. Then came Emily's graduation party. Mom and Dad spared no expense, gourmet catering, lavish decor, the works. I noticed much of the money I sent them had funded the event, but I was used to it. Emily paraded around in her cap and gown like she'd invented electricity. She spotted me by the dessert table and made a beeline, waving her diploma like a prize. "Look at this, Lisa," she said, thrusting it at me. "Whitmore College, not some state school like yours. I've got interviews with top firms. I won't end up filing papers like you." I took another sip of my drink. "Congrats, Emily," I said. "That's all you've got?" she sneered. "Aren't you envious? I'm going to be huge. And you're just... you." She stood there, practically begging me to admit her superiority. I could have told her about my investments, my paid-off condo, how I earned more before breakfast than she would in her first year working. But why bother? I shrugged and walked away, leaving her clutching her diploma like it could shield her. Insecurities. 3 months after graduation, Emily was still unemployed. Those firms she bragged about weren't impressed by her fancy degree. Meanwhile, student loan bills started piling up. One night, Mom called. "Lisa, got a minute?" I knew what was coming. "Emily's loan payments?" She paused, probably, for effect. "They're really hitting us hard, honey, with all our other costs. I hate asking, but could you—" "How much?" I cut in, already dreading it. "Well, if you could bump your monthly help to $8,500, it'd be a godsend." I thought of all the times they'd dismissed my achievements, all the moments Emily mocked my career. But I looked at my bank account, comfortably in the 7 figures, unknown to them. "Fine," I said. "I'll adjust it starting next month." Mom barely thanked me before planning how to spend it. This'll help so much with Emily's loans, and maybe we can get her some nice suits for interviews. Weeks later, Emily landed a job at a firm where Dad had a friend in HR. The irony wasn't lost on me when she started as a manager. One weekend, I stopped by my parents' house and found Emily lounging on the sofa, browsing apartment listings. "Everything's so expensive," she whined. "I can't believe I'm stuck here with Mom and Dad. It's embarrassing." "You could try a smaller place," I suggested, "or look outside downtown." She shot me a look like I told her to live in a dumpster. "I need to be in the right area, Lisa. Not that you'd get it. Some of us have standards." I glanced at my parents' modest living room, where she lived rent-free but kept quiet. She sighed, tossing her phone down. "This is temporary. Unlike you, I won't be a manager forever. I've got real potential." As Thanksgiving neared, Mom dove into her usual chaotic hosting mode. Every year, she insisted on doing it all, turning the kitchen into a disaster zone, but this time was different. "I don't know how I'll manage," she moaned over the phone a week before. "I hurt my back lifting Emily's laundry, and now I can barely move. How can I cook for 20 people?" "Why don't I handle it?" I offered. "I can have it catered from that new bistro downtown." Mom's voice lit up. "You're such a lifesaver, Lisa. What would we do without you?" On our video call, I saw Emily in the background, rolling her eyes dramatically. Even a hint of praise for me was enough to sour her mood. Thanksgiving arrived, much like every family gathering. The catered food arrived on time, and I helped Mom set up while ignoring Emily's snarky remarks about how store-bought gravy couldn't compare to homemade. I brought my laptop since the European markets would open during dinner, and I had trades to monitor. I set it up in my old room, left it running, and joined the family. The food was excellent, far better than Mom's usual overcooked roast. As everyone settled with their plates, Mom couldn't resist mentioning her back. "I was so stressed about cooking," she told the room of aunts, uncles, and cousins, "but Lisa stepped up and got this amazing catered meal. Wasn't that kind?" "That was generous, Lisa," Aunt Susan said warmly. "Must have costed you a bit." "It's no big deal," I said, waving it off. "Just glad everyone's enjoying it." "She makes enough at that manager job to help us out a lot," Mom added proudly. Maybe the first time she'd ever publicly acknowledged my contributions. Across the table, Emily's face hardened. Suddenly, she pushed her chair back and stormed out. I thought it was just her usual dramatics, but something felt off. When she returned, she held my laptop, a smug grin sending a chill through me. "Let's see how well Lisa's really doing," she said, her voice laced with glee. "Since she's so generous, she won't mind if I show her bank balance. Time to expose what a fake she is." I jumped up. "Emily, don't—" But it was too late. She turned the laptop around, my banking app still open, on full display. The room went deathly quiet. Emily's face twisted, color draining as her hands shook so hard I thought she'd drop the laptop. "Emily?" Mom's voice trembled. "What is it? What's it say?" Emily's voice was a whisper. $10 million. The silence was deafening. I could hear the ticking of Mom's old clock, the hum of the fridge, and the faint clink of my cousin's spoon hitting his plate. "There's got to be an error," Aunt Susan murmured, leaning in. "Lisa's just a manager. At Carter's." "I haven't worked at Carter's in years," I said calmly, finally speaking the truth. "I left to focus on investing full-time. I studied markets, took courses, and got good at it." "You mean you're rich?" Emily's voice broke on the last word. I took a deep breath, facing the stunned faces. "I've been investing for years. Started small, learned as I went, and yes, that account has $10 million. I wasn't hiding it, you just never asked." The silence lasted barely 3 seconds before Mom shattered it with a shrill scream. $10 million! She leapt up, face flushing crimson. "You've had $10 million and let us struggle?" I stared, incredulous. "Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month." Her voice hit a piercing pitch. "Your sister has loans. We have bills. How could you be so selfish, so greedy?" Dad's face contorted with rage. "We raised you better, Lisa. You've been hoarding this while your family suffers." Something in me broke. Years of being the overlooked, dependable but invisible daughter came flooding out. "Oh, so saving money's a crime now? That's rich," I snapped, no humor in my voice. "Tell me, where was your magical savings when it was time to pay? For your college, Emily?" "Oh, right, they didn't save a penny because they spent it all on you. But here's the real joke. They didn't pay for mine either. I earned a full scholarship while you piled up loans for your fancy school." "That's different," Mom barked. Emily wanted. Emily. I cut her off, voice rising. "It's always been about Emily." "Well, Here's a wake-up call. My money is mine. I earned every cent. $7,000 a month is nothing to you, Mom shot back. You should be giving us at least $10,000. We're your parents. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped. Me. 10,000? What? So you can keep spoiling your golden child? I turned to Emily, who was shrinking back. You wanted to expose me as a failure. How's that going? The sister you mocked for being just a manager made something of herself. How's that feel? The family sat frozen, forks suspended, watching the chaos unfold like a heated debate. If you're so successful, Mom sneered, you should be supporting your family. That's your responsibility. My responsibility? I stepped toward Emily and grabbed my laptop from her trembling hands. No. My responsibility ended when you decided I didn't matter. You poured everything into Emily because she was the special one with the bright future. Well, go ahead. Let her and that bright future take care of you. Aunt Susan tried to mediate. Maybe we should all calm down. But it was too late. Mom and Dad were shouting, their voices blending into a storm of anger, blame, and entitlement. Emily burst into tears, her usual tactic when things didn't go her way. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked out of the house I'd once called home. As I reached my car, I could still hear Mom's furious shrieks behind me. The messages started before I got to my condo, my phone buzzing non-stop, calls, texts from Mom, Dad, and Emily. At first they were angry, demanding. Then they turned to guilt trips. I tried replying at first, hoping they'd finally get it, but it was pointless. They didn't want understanding. They wanted my money. Then Mom took it to social media. Her post was a masterclass in manipulation. Heartbroken to learn my eldest daughter has grown wealthy while her family struggles. She refuses to help her sister with loans or support her aging parents. Money changes people. Please pray for Lisa to remember what family means. The backlash came from everywhere. Family friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. How could she be so cold? I always knew she was off. Who abandons their family? Mom fueled every comment with sobbing emojis and grateful replies. The relatives who saw the Thanksgiving meltdown stayed quiet, but their silence didn't stop the flood of judgment. Strangers and distant acquaintances called me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. That was it. I opened my banking app and looked at the $7,000 monthly transfers to my parents. Money they'd dismissed as insignificant. With one tap, I canceled them. Then I sent Mom one final message. I've stopped the payments. I'm done being your bank. Don't contact me again. They didn't get it. The calls intensified, flooding my phone at all hours. Emily used new numbers when I blocked hers. Dad left endless voicemails about my duty to family. Mom ramped up her social media drama, twisting the story further. I blocked them all. Phones, emails, every social media platform they could use. But I knew they wouldn't stop, so I took precautions. I called Mark, my building's front desk manager. I need to add some names to the no-entry list, I told him, giving their names, descriptions, and photos. Sure enough, the next day, Mark called. My parents and Emily had shown up, trying to barge in, causing a scene in the lobby, yelling threats and saying they'd call the police. That night, I sat with my laptop, browsing homes in other states. Maybe it was time for a fresh start. Somewhere they couldn't find me. Some might call it running. I call it setting boundaries. They had years of chances to support me, to value my efforts, to treat me with the love and respect they lavished on Emily. Instead, they belittled me, ignored my success, and only came running when they wanted my money. Now that I see their true colors, I feel no guilt cutting them off. As I browse listings in distant cities, all I feel is relief. Sometimes, the healthiest choice is to walk away, even from family.